Hey, I'm Pastor Ryan Wimberg, and I want to welcome you to our online Ash Wednesday service. Ash Wednesday marks the beginning of Lent, and Lent is a journey. It's an invitation here to go on this journey with Jesus, to take a deeper walk with Christ, to reorient our lives and reflect on some of those things we need to reflect on, and then begin to look forward to those things that Christ would have us look forward to. I'm so glad that you've joined us here today. And if you're going to go on a journey, it has to start somewhere.
It begins with a realization. An epiphany claws its way through a snarl of distractions, emblazoning itself behind your eyelids. Sometimes it's quieter, a nagging dullness in the soul, a kind of fatigue wrought by overstimulation and overprogramming. You're tired. At first, it's just a thought that emerges from the fray, but it becomes a recognition, and finally a reckoning. You look in the mirror one day and it's plain. Just 3 words. I'm not ready. With our attentions wheeling around in so many directions, we feel incapable of joy. Amid the proliferation of half-satisfactions and easy pleasures, we hardly feel hungry for real resurrection.
This realization of our spiritual lethargy persists. It lengthens like a shadow and it darkens like a late afternoon in midwinter. We are not ready for Easter.
How we got here is not so important as the way out. Lent is a changing of posture, a turning around, an uncoiling of the soul that is curved in on itself.
It's taking a hard look at where our freedoms have actually enslaved us. We anesthetize our emotions as soon as we feel them. We carve our own worlds of pleasures and preferences and end up on our own, trapped in ourselves, exiled from God and from our communities. And somewhere, we've lost our imaginations and discarded our best hopes.
The way home is always through the wilderness, the desert, the moors, the frozen tundra, the woods. These are not where we find God, but rather, their desolation and silence give us space to ponder, to listen, to be still. The journey is both physical and spiritual, involving our whole selves.
It's tough, but the ascetic disciplines of Lent make it easy to misunderstand. It's not a hunger strike or an angry discipline to secure specific demands. It's not a power play or a dissident throwdown to manipulate God, not a reciprocal exchange, thinking our effort would counterclaim God's blessing.
In our hunger, our longing, and our discomfort, we meet our weakness. We confront the limits we thought we had transcended, the needs we thought we had filled. Lent is taking a break from the degrading cycle of serving incessant appetites, either our own or someone else's. It's a 40-day pilgrimage into a severe landscape of longing, hope, and expectation, where winter is slowly giving way to spring.
It's 40 days of clinging to the promise of something better. It's 40 days of learning to love the future.
It's 40 days of putting one weary foot in front of the other, fueled by the hope of resurrection.
It's 40 days of following Christ's footsteps into the wilderness to prepare our hearts for his passion, the way of sorrows and Good Friday.
It's 40 days of giving something up, opening our hands and letting go, so that our palms are open to receive. It's 40 days of remembering that we are dust, and to dust we shall return.
We are dust, and to dust we shall return. And that's where this whole service starts. It begins with us being willing to come forward, come under God's presence, and confess our own sins. So let me get us started here today. Dear Lord, I just come to you realizing that you have created me, Lord, that I am but dust. And in your hands, I have become a human. And so, Lord, I come to you repentant of the places this past year where I've fallen short. Lord, there are some things I wish I would have done that I didn't. There are some things that I've done that I wish I hadn't. And I lay those at your feet. Lord, help prepare my heart for what it is you'll have for me in these coming days. This is my humble confession. Now hear these words from the prophet Isaiah, chapter 61. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom from the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn and provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendor. They will rebuild the ancient ruins and restore the places long devastated. They will renew the ruined cities that have been devastated for generations. Strangers will shepherd your flocks, foreigners will work your fields with vineyards, and you will be called priests of the Lord. You will be named ministers of our God. You will feed on the wealth of nations, and in their riches you will boast. Instead of your shame, you will receive a double portion, and instead of disgrace, you will rejoice in your inheritance. And so you will inherit a double portion in your land, and everlasting joy will be yours. For I am the Lord. I love justice. I hate robbery and wrongdoing. In my faithfulness I will reward my people and make an everlasting covenant with them. Their descendants will be known among the nations and their offspring among the peoples. All who see them will acknowledge that they are a people the Lord has blessed. I delight greatly in the Lord. My soul rejoices in my God. For he has clothed me with garments of salvation and arrayed me in a robe of his righteousness, as a bridegroom adorns his head like a priest, and as a bride adorns herself with her jewels. For as the soil makes the sprout come up, and a garden causes seeds to grow, so the sovereign Lord will make righteousness and praise spring up before all nations. Now, these are the words that Jesus speaks, if you'll remember, or if you've never heard the gospel before. Jesus picks up this scroll in his hometown and reads some of these very words from Isaiah. And what does Jesus receive in return for reading these words? Rejection. Rejection from the very people that knew him best. Rejection from his hometown, the people that should have been most excited that he had come to save them from their sins. And the scriptures also mention this idea of ashes. Ashes were a sign of mourning. Often people would place them on their heads in signs of distress. And in the midst of this idea of ashes, the scriptures say that instead of ashes, God is going to give us beauty. Instead of the things we should be so hurting about, God is going to replace those things in our lives with beautiful things instead of those ashes. And finally, the scriptures tell us that where we should have received disgrace, God is going to provide for us grace. That there's an opportunity, if we come with repentant hearts, to be forgiven of our sins, to start anew. And in fact, the scriptures say we will spring up. Something new will spring up amongst us. And that is the journey we are on here as we enter into this season of Lent. A journey that takes us to something new springing up. But in order to get there, we first must go through the cross. That is the journey Jesus is calling us on. I want to thank you so much for joining us on this journey today. Thanks for being courageous enough to step into the presence of God and lay your life down and prepare to take that next step. If this service has meant something to you, I invite you to share it with someone. Maybe it will touch someone else's life in the same way. We love you, and we'll see you soon.